Hello and welcome back to Adobe Live. My name is Ryan Selvey. I'm very excited to have Grant Reed with us today. If you're tuning in straight from Cody Bear and Shauna Lynn, not Shawnee, with some real fun creating animated holiday cards, it's great to have you here. If you're just tuning in for the first time here too, it's great to have you. This is a live stream. We're streaming on both YouTube and Behance. The replay will be available on YouTube. So if you're watching via YouTube replay, hey, great to see you. We'll make it worth your time, even if you weren't here while it was live. But a quick hello to everyone in the chat that is here live, from Keys and Robert, Voodoo Val. Thank you guys all for being here. Now we have a big show for you for the whole day. Not the whole day, the whole hour, but it's going to feel like it's a day's worth of content. Also, hello to Robbie as well. We are joined by Grant Reed, and Grant Reed is a very talented video editor. He has made over 400 projects, and he's going to be telling you all about it. But I'm actually going to pass it over to you, Grant, and say welcome to the show. How's it going?
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
Today,
of
we're just going to be
course.
talking about editing for social media, editing eye-catching intros specifically. Um, I've edited for Zach King, and so I get to do a lot of YouTube high-octane introductions. And so my name specifically is Grant Reed, as we mentioned before. I'm a video editor from Southern California, and I have 8 years of experience editing videos. 2 of those 8 years is working for Zach King and King Studio. I'm so good that they even named me Employee of the Month at least 1 month. And so currently I'm head of long form post production. That's me. And then my partner in crime, Pojo, who does pre production and production. So the two of us are what does all of the YouTube videos on Zach King's channel.
Now, how did you make that connection initially? Did you see Zach's stuff online first and then kind of got to know him, or was it kind of like the work came first and then got to know him?
So I originally saw him in Vine
Mm-hmm.
2014, so I was 14 years old at the time. That's insane. I just saw a few videos. I didn't get into video editing yet. Eventually, I went to Biola University, which is the same university that Zach went to, and then I met Pojo actually, just doing a random short film, a student short film that I just edited and stuff. Didn't know anything about Pojo or anything. He just was an actor. And then 2 years after we finished that, I got to work with him again on a King Studio project. At this point, I was contract. That was about 4 years ago. Wow, a long time ago. Just did one single YouTube video, and then we continued working together. And eventually, I became an employee. Yep.
And then an employee of the month.
And then eventually, we did a bunch of more YouTube videos and stuff. And so, Pojo and I work on 3 main channels. We have the main one, the behind the scenes, and then the compilations. Um, and across those videos, we actually just released a new video this past Saturday. It's a huge one that Zach went to Alaska with 3 of his producers and tried to compete against each other of who could make the best magic video. Um, Specifically, what I do is video editing. That's coloring, sound effects, music, graphics, and then actually, storytelling through video editing. I work with a bunch of different departments, whether it's inside my team or outside my team, whether it be freelance or employees. And since I'm head of long form post production, I have to manage all of them at the same time, usually overlapping projects at the same time. And sometimes we get to do little TikToks as well, mainly branded ones. These are just some of the companies I worked for. I've gotten the huge blessing to work for one of or some of the greatest companies and creators in the world. And overall, I've created almost 420 videos to date, accumulating almost 7 billion views. Now, that's kind of staggered quite a bit because on YouTube Shorts or TikTok, it's a lot easier to gain views. And when I first started out, that's what I started doing. YouTube views, like horizontal long form, is a lot harder. But almost 7 billion views. I'm very proud of that.
But here's a
And
question
then,
for you: Is
yeah.
is the 419 before the video that you posted 2 days ago?
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. It actually is. Wow.
It's
420.
420.
Yep. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I didn't even
Also,
incorporate that video.
congratulations. And in the chat, Asherful is saying, I was wondering who's the editor for Zach. I love your work. Amazing. And we got some woes and some excited comments in the Behance chat. Also over on YouTube, we have Sheshnath being very excited to see you as well. And Robbie from Hall's World. Good to have you guys here. But I'll let you keep going.
Wow. Thank you all for coming and watching. I'm super excited that you guys get to watch my content and that's you guys are the ones I'm making it for, so I'm super lucky that you guys are watching. Okay, moving on, the itinerary for today. The topics are going to be keyframing. If you don't know, keyframing is just moving a PNG or a graphic of some kind just across the screen. I'll explain more, but here's an example of keyframing. It's Steve from Minecraft moving across the screen. The next topic that we'll be talking about is the transform effect. Essentially, it takes keyframing to a whole new level. You can now have motion blur and do a lot more things to make it smooth, and also you just get to optimize keyframing overall. Next topic that we're going to be covering is Adobe Dynamic Link. This is actually a really cool feature that I'm very happy that Adobe has because Adobe is a grand scheme of programs. They have Premiere, Photoshop, After Effects, all kinds of programs. So the Adobe Dynamic Link lets you go to After Effects. Actually, I have a graphic for this. Premiere to After Effects, which is pretty cool. Very helpful for later on when we're doing more advanced graphics. Next topic, Roto Brush. So we're going to use Adobe Dynamic Link and Roto Brush together to make some really cool graphics where we can cut out people. For example, we have Zach here, intro of a video, and boom, we can remove the background. Maybe we want him to be in Alaska. Maybe we want him to be in Woohoo Island from Wii Sports Resort. Maybe the greatest anime of all time. Or maybe your mom's house. We can pick whatever we want because we can cut them out and do whatever we want.
How'd you get
From
that
there,
picture?
her and I had dinner last night. Anyway, moving on. And then the very last step we're going to do is put it all together. We're going to use all of the topics that we learned and do an actual intro for Zach King's video. And that's it from there. And then actually make an eye-catching introduction is where I'm going with that. So now what we're going to head to is keyframing. So I'm going to head over to Premiere and we're actually going to start doing stuff, which is very exciting.
Now, you said you hop between both Premiere and After Effects. Which one is superior for you?
Okay, so I am a novice at After Effects. I can literally only do the basics of graphics, essentially. So that's Roto Brush, camera tracking, tracking for stability, and then maybe some layer track mats. But most of my knowledge is in Premiere, and I get a lot of it done in Premiere and just go to After Effects for like mocha tracking as well. Like niche programs that I've watched a few YouTube videos or live streams just like this to learn more. But yeah,
So basically, the After Effects to you is the sprinkles on the cake, and you kind of focus both on making the cake.
exactly. Yep, that is wow, that's a really good analogy. I'm going to steal that now.
Val is in the chat saying that she loves this presentation, and love is in all caps, which I
Wow.
also have to agree with. Thank you so much for taking the time to make this presentation and walk us through all this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, no problem. Okay, so the first thing we're going to go through is just keyframing some simple graphics. So, let me pull up some of my media here. I used a picture of my coworker Emil Rappaport. Let me just get the stuff aligned. So basically, what we're gonna do is have a simple graphic. I don't know if anybody's watched Summoning Salt, but he talks about speed running records. And so I'm just gonna have a playful scenario where Emil Rappaport, this guy with the glasses, is now a world champion at 4 different video games. So all we're gonna do is scale him down a little bit, put him in the center.
What is that? What does that constitute? Like, why? How is he the pro gamer at these games? Does he's like speed run it?
Yeah, yep. He
Okay,
completed the video game the fastest possible. Now,
got
he
it.
actually didn't complete any of these video games, but I figured it was a good topic because I love my video games a ton. And actually, I watched quite a few YouTube videos about speedrunning video games. One
Yeah,
moment.
so you got into Zach originally through Vine, and then obviously YouTube's a different beast from Vine, which is a different beast from TikTok. Do you feel like it's complicated to kind of juggle between these different platforms and the ways that you edit?
Yes, that's a really good question. When finishing up the Alaska video currently, I would have to switch between TikToks, branded TikToks, and this large YouTube video. And the pacing is so different. Yes, you have to get to the point fast and have some cool edits, but on TikTok, you have to get like really, really fast because anybody could swipe in a second, literally a fraction of a second. People would be like, "This isn't for me," and immediately swipe. On YouTube, it's more about building out that rapport with your viewer and having a story to tell over the course of 20 minutes instead of 20 seconds. And so there are difficulties getting between the two, but they both have really good elements that you can blend to each other. Like for YouTube, longer form, it's more about storytelling and what are you offering the audience. On TikTok, it's more of like simple engagement, trying to tell a very quick sound bite. or quick story in that case.
And it's been nice seeing it feels like YouTube has gotten um more welcoming with longer, like as time has gone on, and people are more kind of like really being like, this is where this is where the money is. Well, but not money as in like thinking, but money as in time money, I guess.
Yes, as in
And
viewership.
attention.
That's actually what uh, our team is currently working on, is having longer videos, about 20 minutes, because the audience that you get from it is more like loyal. Like they'll want to expect longer videos so then they can sit down for a meal, watch it, and then be satisfied at the end of the video. So yeah, we're going for that longer video because before we would go for like 8 minutes, I believe,
Yeah.
7 to 8 minutes, where it'd be quicker, just kind of one quick storyline. But now we're expanding. But now the videos take longer to make, unfortunately. Okay,
Of
so
course.
moving on, what we're gonna do for this background, we have our 4 little games and stuff, but I don't think it's quite complete yet, so we're gonna head over to Google and stuff. This is another trick that I'm gonna actually show you, is we're gonna just search up what's it called? Video game background. And we're just gonna go to images, and now let's go, oops, not remover. I don't want remover. Video game background. Now we're just going to look for a nice little cool background. Given that I'm a pretty nostalgic guy, I'm going to go with the Mario, especially since we're talking about speedrunning, and Mario is one of the biggest speedrun games. I think we'll download that one. Then we're going to head over to Premiere. We're going to open up our little uh, file manager. We're going to go to downloads, and we're going to bring it into our timeline.
Now, can I ask
So,
you a question about your matte process here? You used the circle to just create a matte for the profile picture, and then you kind of extended it. Is that
yes.
kind of what you normally do?
Yeah, so for this simplicity of getting it done as quickly as possible, which time is money, usually when I'm working, I have a lot of shortcuts to get stuff done quickly. All I did was press this little, actually, I can just redo it actually. I just pressed this little circle and then I extended it a little bit to make it an actual circle. If you hold shift, it'll keep it a perfect circle. Kind of center it on Emil's face, and then I headed over to expand mask. So it kind of makes it bigger. Instead of having to adjust all 4 points together to make it bigger, now I can just do one little setting to adjust it. And then as you see, it has these little side because the graphic underneath it is now being cut off, or there's no graphic left. Then I just kind of minimize it to kind of have just the edge of it. So I get the most information out of it without showing that it's incomplete.
That's
So that's
great.
how I did that little graphic. I'm glad you mentioned that. Okay, so now moving on, we're just going to make this background a little better. So right now, everything is just kind of being vomited at me. Like I can't tell what's the graphic I'm supposed to be focused on because the background is standing out just as much as the items I want to be focusing on. So from there, I'm going to head over to my little effects panel. We're gonna type in blur. Kind of lazy there. I could type in Gaussian blur, but I also can't spell that well, so I just put in blur and go find it from there. We're just going to add a little bit of a blur right about there. It looks pretty good. You can tell what you're supposed to be focused on, but we can do better very quickly as well. We're going to head over to our Lumetri color. If you don't see any of these panels that I have on here, you can hover to Window and click on what you're looking for. I always mention what panel I'm looking for, but Lumetri color is what I'm looking for. We're just going to go to exposure and bring it down just a little bit. See, now our focus is brighter than the background because our eyes will immediately go to whatever's brightest on screen. But we can make it better. We always can. We're going to head over to the vignette part, bring it all the way down to -5, and now it centers our focus to the middle, which is Emil, because he, at the moment, is the most important part of this video. Now we're going to get into the actual keyframing part. Let me make this bigger for all of you. There we go. Now we're going to get into the keyframing part. Let me figure out which layers are which moment.
Now, you generally zooming in and out with your keyboard, or you use a scroll wheel?
I use both. So if I was to be zoomed out super far and I'm like, I'm not going to just keep zooming for 30 seconds and hopefully get to it, I have a command called Shift Z where it's zoom to timeline.
Nice.
So I use that a lot to go in and out. And
And
then
that's
I
a
also
custom one you
use,
made, right?
yes, this is a custom one. But the exact word you want to look for when searching for it is zoom to sequence, I believe is what it's called.
Smart.
Um, and then I also use the scrolling to be a little more fine-tuned. It's Alt and then the scroll wheel on your mouse, and that's how I do these fine-tuned scrolls.
Nice.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to the actual keyframing. Let me just adjust my layers real quick because organization is a saver through all of this. And then let's see what that one
And also,
is.
how do you approach color in your timeline? Like I see everything's purple. Do you just set them up to ones that you like with like if it's a picture, it's purple?
Yes, so I know that Premiere by default colors them. Also, I didn't even mention from the beginning. This is Adobe Premiere Pro 2025. The UI might look a little different than yours because for the longest time they had more of a uh, grayer color and it was more blocky. Everything now is a little more rounded and stuff, so everything might look a little different. And one of those differences is the coloring of clips. So Premiere itself has a coloring scheme. For example, I think it used to be a lighter purple, but now any graphics will be darker purple, any clips will be blue, any sound files will be like a greenish, bluish color. I'll explain later and I'll point them out when we get to them. But I also have key strokes to color stuff however I want because, like I said, being organized will save you a ton of time and it'll make you look professional because, being professional is pretty cool. Um, and so, okay, the starting points for keyframes. Keyframes are going to make you from a novice editor to a extremely well-versed editor that can work in Hollywood, social media, and some of the biggest creators and companies in the entire world. This is what will make you different as an editor. So, to start off, as you saw me using before, it was just these little numbers that you can kind of swing back and forth. I'm currently moving my mouse left and right to move those numbers. That's moving this image. From there, I'm just going to press Control Z to bring it back to where it was. To initiate a first keyframe, you're going to go to the first beginning of the clip, press this little stopwatch. This little triangle or diamond that you see here is a keyframe. Now from there, that position is locked in. Now if you go forward, we'll go about like a second or maybe 45 or to a third to a what is that? 30 frames or so, 30, 24 frames, and then we'll
Are you
move
normally
it.
editing in 30 frames per second?
Yes, yeah. For our cameras that we film on, it's either 30 frames or 29.978, I think is what the
Yeah, like
numbers are.
the weird, almost there industry standard.
Yep,
I don't know why we do that, but
yep.
we're here.
And so now what we're doing is having our endpoint. And so now what Premiere's going to do is fill in the rest of the animation. We put in our beginning, and then we put in our end, which is behind his little image. As you can see, it's poking out a little bit, so I'm going to fix it. If you have your playhead over the video on the exact frame, you can manipulate it and it won't affect anything. It will just fix where you want it to be. And so now let's play it in real time. Wow. Just like that, Emil just speed ran Pikmin 2 and got a world record. He just secured that record. Let's keep moving on. Now we're going to move the other ones. So let's go on to our next clip. Now that that one's keyframed, we can move it up because, like I said, organization will save you in the long run. So now that I know that these are done, now I'm going to move on to the next one. We're going to keyframe again the Super Mario 64 speed run
The best
of
game.
this position. And then we're going to move forward about, I'm just kind of winging it currently. I would actually like count the frames to make sure it's all even. From there, I can move it over, have it go behind Emil once again. Let's play in real time. Boom, speed record. Boom, another world record that he just achieved. And now that we're done, oops. Now that we're done, we're going to move that up. And now when we get to this third one, I'm actually going to teach you a quicker way to do this because efficiency, time is money. So again, we're going to get our first position where we started. Then we're going to scroll over just a little bit. And now in your program window, you can double click the graphic and you can see a tiny little, actually I can zoom in for you. There's this tiny little outline that we have here. And then we can actually move it with our thing. And you see this tiny little trail. I don't know if it comes across on Zoom, but there's these tiny trail of dots. And then I'll show you where it's going to go. So now if we watch it in real time, boom, one, two, now three records that he just achieved in the span of 3 seconds. Man, he's fast. Now we're going to move on.
How
The
did you
second one.
zoom into the monitor window?
Yes. Okay, it's an update with Premiere, which I am actually unhappy with. So before, if you had your mouse over the program window and you use your scroll wheel, it'll zoom in on the picture. What it used to do is move frame by frame based on your scrolling wheel. So let me fix it real quick. So what happened before, let me get to a keyframe. There we go. If you had your mouse over the program window and you did your scroll wheel, it would go like this. Very helpful for masking. Unfortunately, I do see the appeal, but now if you use your scroll wheel, it'll zoom in, which unfortunately that's not what I'm used to, and
See, I'm here
I'm
for
just
it though,
preference.
because as an avid After Effects user, it's closer to After Effects, and
Yep.
it used to drive me crazy when I'd be like, no, I just want to zoom in. Why am I going forward?
Yes, yeah. And I'm the complete opposite. I wish there
Right,
was a setting, at least like a little checkbox in preferences. We could be like, hey, I want it to scroll the timeline or I want it to scroll the actual image. But
right.
um, of course, it just got updated or whatnot. So um,
Also, people are liking the update in the chat, talking about the vibrancy of the colors, which is good.
yes.
Alessandra has joined and says hello. And Penny is saying, I like this style of explanation. Exciting and encouraging, not stressful and overwhelming. So if you want to make it stressful,
No, it's
speed up
already
a little
stressful enough for me right now.
bit. You're doing
So now
great.
we'll just do it again for the Elden Ring speed run. Again, double clicking on the image, and now we can move it over, and boom. Let's watch it in real time. Emil secured one, two, not three, but four world records in the span of 3 seconds and 12 frames, almost 4 seconds. So here's the simplistic way of doing keyframes. Now, as you can tell, they're very clunky. They start quick and they end abruptly. Thankfully, I have Emil's image to kind of hide the abrupt stop. But if we were to actually disable using Shift E, that's a custom key stroke for me to enable or disable. You can also right click once it brings it up. Premiere has frozen for a second. There we go. Head over here, and then there should be an enable and disable somewhere. Right here. There we go. But I have a keyboard shortcut for it. Because again, time is money. So if we were to watch it in real time, it just stops very abruptly. So the next part that I'll be talking about, one moment. Actually, I have another lesson to talk about just for standard keyframing. Let's head over to my next one. There we
Also,
go.
keyframing comes from traditional animation where someone on the team would create the key scenes for people to make the chapters to people animate, and then the other people would animate in between. So that's kind of a
That's cool.
old
I did not know.
terminology.
That's really cool. Dang.
Yeah.
I'm learning stuff too. Okay, so this is just a little snippet of the newest Zach King video that was posted literally, I think, 48 hours ago. And I'm going to
Congrats.
show you the impressiveness of, or the impact that keyframing a zoom in can have on dramatization or building suspense. So I'll just play it without the zooming in and you'll see what it looks like.
In the next 24 hours, I am shooting 3 of my most ambitious videos.
This is insane.
We lost our producer.
It's gonna be insane.
I hate you so much, Ashley.
Get back in. Don't think. We almost died.
And the fun part is we're doing it all in Alaska.
And sound effects, so it has a bigger impact at the end. But essentially, all of these quick cuts between, there's no motivating action to keep pushing forward to build suspense. So we're gonna actually add that real quick. Keyframing scale will help us out there. So to start off, we're gonna, sorry, I kind of jumped ahead. I'm really fast with it. You're going to go to the beginning of your clip. Here's going to be the standard 100%. If you were to zoom out at all, then you have black bars because that's the edge of the frame. Hitting undo to go back to where it was. Pressing the stopwatch. There we go. Now pressing the stopwatch will have your little diamond that you can kind of move around. And then we'll go to the end of the clip, going back one frame. There we go. And you'll just zoom in about like 127. Let's see what that looks like. That actually wasn't noticeable, so we're going to zoom in more.
This is
Camera motion. So let's do like 205. Now we're really getting extreme. Let's see what it looks like. That's, I guess, good enough for now. You can kind of see in the beginning. There's a lot of motion to it, so it's kind of hard to see, but this shot will be a lot better. Let's go to scale, go to towards the end of it. We'll go like 130. As you can see, it kind of cuts off Emil's head a little bit. Also, you can see the effect of it. That was a very quick zoom, which might get a little cheesy.
this is bad.
Bring it out a little bit. Maybe like 122 is pretty good. 122 is pretty good. And then we'll go on to the next clip. Again,
the life
time
of
is
an
money.
editor, just constantly being like, okay, you know what? Maybe 127, 128, 129. Yep.
All of this is just trial and error and just hoping. It's the worst thing you can do is try to plan out everything before you even try, because everything will change as soon as you start getting into it. And you're like, oh, that's a really good idea. Actually, the plan I had before, I don't even need those shots anymore because I have this cool soundbite. So just keep experimenting and you'll find something really cool. It's about the grind, unfortunately.
Speaking of the grind, this is, you said about like a 20-minute video, right?
Yes, 22 minutes to be exact.
How many hours would you say it took to complete this video?
Oh man, a long time. So we worked on it for 10 dedicated 4 weeks. We had 2 weeks of doing other projects to finish up and stuff that were branded. So 4 weeks in total. That's 40 hours a week. But I did a lot of overtime to complete it. So lots of weekends and long days. So I couldn't give you an exact number because I'm really bad with math at the moment. But 40 times 4, and then adding a few extra hours, that's at least 300
160
hours.
there.
And I was one of 2 editors. I was the lead editor on this project. I started it and then had some help on the final week where we were both cranking it out almost 12, 14-hour days for an entire week. But thankfully, it turned out fantastic. I couldn't have done it without Corey Williams is the other editor's name. I'm very
Also,
thankful.
we have a request from chat. Are we able to mute the clips as we stop and play repeatedly until we watch the finished?
Most definitely, yes. I'm so sorry. I know it's probably annoying for a third-party person because in my head I already know that I'm going to press play, but I currently have them muted. Let me mute this one as well.
It's also one of those things that, like, whenever I'm editing and I don't have my headphones on, my fiance will come in and be like, "What are you doing?"
That's going to drive her crazy.
Like, I'm sorry.
And then I'm just quickly putting in the keyframes. There's a faster way than I'm currently doing it, but just to start off with the basics, this is how you would do it. It's all about repetition. Again, right about there.
About how many people tend to follow him around on these shoots?
So for this project, it was impromptu. This project was, let me find her. This was Ashley's last project to work on before she moved on to her next job. And so we had about 3 days of planning for the video, and then we left for Alaska. And so we had about, I think there was a total of 6 people in total.
Wow.
So we were really lucky to have that many because, like I said, it was last minute. So I was one of the last people that they brought on. Of course, I'm the editor, but I also was helping filming and building the story as we go because we didn't have much time to prepare. So they really wanted me on the project. So it was supposed to be 5, but I was able to weasel my way in and get a free trip to Alaska. So I'm super fortunate to be part of the team.
Very cool.
Let's do about like 1.
It's also, I feel like, easier to know how to edit something when you kind of had a hand in shooting it as well because you have a better idea.
Yes, it really saved on this. It really saved me on this project to be on set because there were so many story beats that we were trying to think of how to make it more interesting, like cutting back and forth between Emil and Ashley, and how to make that cut well. And so, thankfully, since I was on the set, I was able to figure out. I was mainly following Emil, so when they go to the glacier, I actually wasn't there, so I had to really rely on Pojo, the guy from the beginning who does pre-production, for him to film all the great content that I needed.
Also, Helena has joined us in the chat. We're about halfway through our show, just as a catch up in case anyone's joining a little bit late. We're here with Grant Reed from Zach King Video and also his own works as well. And we're just going through the editing process. Right now, we're exploring the beginnings of a YouTube video and making it nice and engaging as you are starting to capture your audience in the first few seconds.
Yep. Getting that high retention within the first 30 seconds and hooking your audience to have them keep watching instead of just clicking away. Okay, so now we've gotten our dramatized zoom-ins. We'll see what it looks like real quick. It just kind of adds the intense, oh my goodness, what's happening? Oh man, this is getting really intense. Let's see what happens. Boom, and then we finally hit with the last one. Now let me bring in the, let me put this over here real quick.
So it kind of all builds in and creeps in until the end where it then zooms out to kind of give the answer to the visual question.
Yes, exactly. And then one last thing I'll add is a adjustment layer that I've added, literally just a vignette. I love doing vignettes because it centers the audience's attention on whatever's in the middle of the screen. I just did a adjustment layer, headed over to Lumic Color, went under vignette, and went it all the way to -5. And so now it adds even more intense because it's constricting a little bit, and so it adds suspense even more. And the last thing that I'll do to really drive this home is add in the sound effects and music, which really adds a lot to your edit. Let me copy.
Yeah, I saw I think a meme that was saying, like, as you become a more advanced editor, you think that the top half of your timeline is going to get more complicated, but in reality, it's all in that audio on the bottom half.
Yes, it really builds the suspense and the importance of the moment.
Now,
In the next 24 hours, I am shooting 3 of my most ambitious videos.
This is bad.
He's not gonna die, is he?
This is bad.
He's not gonna die, is he?
We lost our producer. It's gonna be insane.
I hate you so much, Ashley.
Get back in, don't think. We almost died.
And the fun part is we're doing it all in Alaska.
Unfortunately, that's just a glitch with Premiere, or a bug, I should say. To get rid of it, I have to close Premiere and open it back up, which I don't think I have time to do because this project's pretty large. But that's how you do the keyframing. It adds a ton of suspense. I know the sound effects kind of cheated its way in there to make it even more suspenseful than it was before, but that's how you build suspense at any moment. Now we're going to move on to more advanced keyframing with the transform effect. Let me pull that up.
and also just to kind of ruin the ending here, but nobody died, right?
I guess you have to all watch for yourself. Yep. No one died. No, it wouldn't be on YouTube if somebody did. Now the next one is going to be here. I will actually, I'll actually just do a Zach King since it seems like we have a lot of Zach King fans in the chat.
Also, when you're doing these vignettes, it appears you're kind of keeping them static, right? Do you just do a hard cut when you're switching between footage to when you get rid of the vignette?
Yes, just a hard cut. Yep. Sometimes there'll be instances where I would hard cut to a vignette to really emphasize a moment. But yeah, since it's just on an adjustment layer, it'll just cut out when we finally get to this relief. One way you could have a pretty cool way of easing out of it is you can keyframe it. As I said, you can keyframe almost anything in Premiere. All of these tracks are meant for keyframe. So if we were to head over to vignette, I'm so glad you mentioned this because this is another way to keyframe stuff, is you head over to the amount under vignette. Here's your stop, or your start, excuse me. So it's going to have the -5. You're just going to scroll over about right here. And as it zooms out, we're going to bring it back to 0. I hit this little like restart. It'll make it go back to whatever the original parameter was, or a reset parameter. And so now, instead of it being a hard cut, now it will slowly fade out. And so keyframes are useful for all kinds of things, not just scaling video in and out. You can use it on basically any effect that is in Premiere. And now we'll move on to this next one. Okay, so now one of the best tricks that we use in Zach King's videos is he'll react to his own videos. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to have a shot of him reacting to it, and then here's the actual trick that he created and going to be reacting to. For those of you who have actually already watched this video was posted, I think, 7 or 8 months ago. So now you really get to see how it was made. I was the editor for this project. That's why I have all the assets for this. So what we could do, very standard, is just have the video pop up. So it would just kind of like all of a sudden appear. Zach says, hey, let's spin it. Let's go to whatever it's called.
Next up, we're going to Stonehenge.
So very easily we could have just had it hard cut. But then there's no magic in that. There's no like wows. There's no wow to the editing. So I figured I'd take it on myself to make it a little cooler. So what we're going to do is here's roughly the framing that we're looking for. Since TikTok or vertical content is so skinny and it doesn't take up much of the frame, I'm actually going to punch in a little bit, make it a little bigger, because the magic trick usually is about here. I'm going to make it just a little bit bigger. So now the viewer gets to really see the trick, and then we're not so small on the actual magic trick. Then we're going to scoot over Zach a little bit, just so he's a little center. Bring him up a little bit, about that headroom, right about there.
By the way, I loved the spin transition. That was fun.
Thank you. That was the first.
Nice
This video
one,
was the first time I used Google Earth Studio to animate some stuff, and then I went into After Effects to track in this what's called 3D text and stuff. So I got to experiment on the job, which is really cool because not many places let you learn on the job. You just need to have what you learn, and anything you learn is outside work, because like I keep saying, time is money, and they need to keep going.
Yeah, it's also interesting because there's no probably drone access around Stonehenge.
Correct.
So being able to use Google Earth probably is a good
as
saver.
a great transitionary piece. So now we're gonna head over to our effects panel and go for the transform. I have a few presets, but I'm just going to head to oh no, it's right there. Oh no. Transform.
Now, these
It's-
Premiere presets are these ones that you've loaded yourself?
These are ones that I did myself, but the transform effect is built into Premiere. So the presets that I have are just like certain keyframes that I wanted to use over and over again. So here it is. I put it in a different bin, but it's called transform. We're just gonna slap it on our magic trick. And so now, again, we're going to use the exact same concept. We're going to have a different UI down here. It's a completely different effect than the motion that's up here, which is really cool because now you can like layer them and do a lot of cool stuff later on, more advanced. But now that we have our ending frame, this is our ending frame. So we'd have the keyframe around here, keyframe the position, and now we're going to go to the beginning of the clip. And now instead of it being like already in frame, we're going to scoot it all the way off to the side. And so now it will come into frame. Now that currently looks pretty boring, but I'll spice it up in a second. From here, we're going to line it up. Let's go to that keyframe, slap the transform on Zach's footage now, and we're going to go right about here to the oh wait, sorry. I forgot to add my keyframe. Position, go to the beginning, and then now we're just gonna eyeball this. For simplicity's sake, I'm making it a lot more simple to understand than what I would actually do. But now if we were to do it in real time, they kind of slide over. I'm going to mute all of this real quick. Sorry.
Hey, will you get a photo for me?
Now it just slides over. That's really, really dumb, very boring, not any pizzazz to it. So now let's put some pizzazz into it. Let's make it a really cool edit. We're going to highlight our two our keyframes. We're going to right click, go to temporal interpretation. Whatever the word is, it's not interpretation, but we're gonna do Bezier.
Interpretation.
Yeah, sure, yeah. And then we're gonna click this little down arrow, and this is the bread and butter of what makes you a fantastic editor. This is what's really going to make you different than everybody else. You see these little two handles? You can bring them down, and these are what's called spines. And so now you're manipulating how fast the video will move or keyframe. So now, if we play it back. Now it had like a bell curve to it. It sped up over time and then slowed down.
So you're using the velocity there.
Yes. Now let me explain what these curves actually mean. If it starts at the bottom, it means there's no movement. Like you see this little flat line over here, that means it's not moving at all. The more it goes up, the more the curve goes up, the faster it goes. So it peaks in speed right here. This is the fastest it will ever go. And then everything after that, it's slowly going to slow down. So it has that really like ease in and out. It's still not fast enough that I like. Look how kind of slow that was. So it's bringing it in. So now what we just did is we just crunched it together. So now it's going to be an overall faster animation. Let's play it from here. Boom. That's pretty good. But we can do better. There's always a way to do something better. We're going to head over to the shutter angle. And this is what's going to give you your motion blur. This is the really cool part. You're going to put in like 180. It goes all the way up to 360, but that might be too much motion blur. So I'm going to keep it at 180. Now let's press play. Wow. I don't know if you can see it. It just kind of adds to it. Yes, it makes it smoother than it was. As you can see, it has like these little distortion to it as if it was motion blur. And it really adds like the chef's kiss to it. It really makes it different. So now that we've actually created this animation here, we're actually going to select our transform and copy it, and we're going to actually just paste it to our other clip. We're going to delete our old one because we want to match the exact same bell curve that we created, the same spine. So then they both move at the same time. So now let me adjust the frame. So our starting frame is not where we want it. Let's go adjust it over to
but by adjusting that position, you're still not adjusting the bell curve. The bell curve is remaining the same, right?
Correct. Very glad you brought that up. Yep. I can move this as much as I want, and it'll stay the exact same. So now, if I was to play them together, they should move together.
That's great.
Wow, that's
fancy.
basically what the final video was. The last little detail to make it even better, as I keep mentioning, is you're gonna head over to the
also nice, just as a call out here, is that you have the establishing shot kind of full frame, not just coming from the side. Like you have it switched directly to it, where you didn't necessarily need to have, but it just kind of grounds the viewer and then slides in that vertical shot, which is nice.
Yep. And then if you're like, hey, I didn't want it within the very first frame, you can actually zoom in on your timeline. You can bring it over right about here. So the animation won't start until here. Do the same for this clip. My playhead is currently aligned with the other keyframe on the clip, so I'm just going to bring the first one here. And so now, as you mentioned, we can establish the frame and then have the animation happen. We establish Zach's looking at it. Boom. What is he looking at? The TikTok. And so the last step to separate these two frames, yes, that's doable. You can clearly tell the two different videos, but that you can always make it better. Add a drop shadow from the effects panel. You're going to scroll on down. You're going to make this 100%. We're going to make it white color. And then you're just going to rotate it. There we go. Currently, I'm just making the distance or the shadow further from the frame. Let me find exactly what I want it to be. I think it's
so rather than having to incorporate like a graphic line, you're just relying on the drop shadow to kind of create
exactly. And the best part of it is that it's built into the video. So I'll show you in a second why that's helpful. So right now, this white line is attached to this video. Now, why that's important? Oops. As you can see, I didn't account for the drop shadow yet. So let's go over here. Let's go to our keyframe, and let's just get rid of that white line. Because, you know, other editors will look at it and be like, oh, you didn't adjust that little graphic. You let it go through and posted the video without fixing it. So now, when we play through it, you have that white, oops, Premiere lagged for a second.
Grant's out here editing for other editors rather than editing.
Yeah. And so now that white line is built in. What you would have to do before is have a white line asset or a PNG that you would put in, and then have to match the bell curve. Again, it's just one more thing to keep track of. In this case, it's already built in. Very easy. Now, if you sorry,
I said time is money. That's all I was just reiterating what you were saying earlier in today.
Yep. And then if you really, never mind, I'll keep going on. I was gonna say if you really want to get fancy, you can have both frames come in and close over this Stonehenge, which I actually did in the final video. But I have lots more stuff to talk about, and I think we're running out of time soon. So the next thing I'm going to talk about, Adobe Dynamic Link, which is probably the greatest feature that Adobe has to switch between different programs. Because then you can use all of the powerhouse of After Effects in Premiere. One moment as I pull up that timeline.
And I saw also at a point there too, you were able to manage and move all assets on your timeline to move it to the left. Was that just with the keyboard shortcut?
Yes. By pressing A, it gives you these two arrows. You don't have to hold A. You just click it once and this little icon will pop up. Clicking once will select everything to the right of my cursor. If you hold... where is it?
Right,
Oops.
it's like muscle memory. You have to like look down and be like, what am I doing with my hands?
I forget how to switch it the other way.
That's sure. Right.
Oh, there we go. Shift A if you wanted to switch it to everything to the left.
Oh, I didn't actually know that one.
Yeah, it's very helpful. And then if you hold Shift, you can select only one lane or one row.
Like column, row thing,
and then to switch it back, you press Shift A, and then oops.
Very cool.
There we go. Just pressing A by itself. My mistake. It's all, like I said, muscle memory. When I had to think about it, I'm like, what was it? What is it actually? Okay, moving on to Adobe Dynamic Link. So here's an introduction of top 10 messiest tricks. I'll just play through it real quick.
These are my top 10 messiest videos, and I'm going to show you how I made them and why they got completely...
Very fun. Okay, so now how can we make this
completely out of control?
We're going to right-click, press, where is it? Replace with After Effects Composition. This is the Adobe Dynamic Link. It's going to open up After Effects. If you have any questions, now would be the time as this is opening up.
Got those weird, cute little new splash pages.
Yes, yes. Again, this is Adobe After Effects 2025. That's why it might look a little different. It'll prompt you to create a new project. We're just going to call it Adobe Live. Press save. And now we have our After Effects project with our footage in here. There we go. So what we just saw in Premiere is now in After Effects. I'm going to press save, just show you again. Now the clip has been turned into a Adobe Dynamic Link. So now whatever we do in After Effects will show up in Premiere. Super cool. Like, I cannot tell you how cool this is. Let's head over back to After Effects. Now, to do the Roto Brush, this is going to be the most helpful tool ever. I mean, like, to up your game for as a graphics editor, this is going to be fantastic. Double clicking on the clip will open up in your layers panel. This is when you can use the Adobe Roto Brush. Clicking it once will give you this little tiny green icon. Let me zoom in. holding control and left click, I believe, and moving left and right will change the size of your brush. A little different than Photoshop. I think it's alt and right click, I think will change the thing. Holding space will give you a hand so you can move it all around and stuff. Very helpful. This is actually very intuitive. The scroll wheel will zoom in and out. The hand or pressing space and left click will let you move around. This is really helpful, not gonna lie. So now with the Roto Brush, super simple. All you have to do is now paint out Zach. So you see this green line, this is what I'm highlighting. I'm just gonna kind of do a quick one, just highlighting around. So now it did a really good job. That's incredible. As you see, there's a little bit highlighted that I don't want it to highlight. So now we're gonna hold Alt to have this negative to deselect. We're just gonna kind of get rid of that. Now we're gonna highlight his hair a little bit, and boom. Now let's zoom out a little bit and do his body and the table.
Now, for anyone who's watching who might not be as familiar with After Effects, is roto brushing like drawing on top of the film? Like, what are you doing here with the roto brush?
Yes. So you see this tiny little purple line that kind of outlines Zach and part of this shelf right here. Basically, what we're doing is we're selecting part of the frame, and then eventually we're going to cut it out. So let me deselect this footage right here and part of this right here.
And the red just lets us know that you're saying we don't want to select that area
Correct.
or that
Yep.
object.
Whatever's in the pink, we're going to keep. Whatever's outside of the pink, we're going to get rid of it. So mainly for this instance, we're going to get rid of the background. We're going to replace it with something else. Maybe like Ryan's mom's house. Maybe, again. And then let's deselect this right here. And then that looks pretty good to me. So now we're basically going to cut it out for the entire video. Not just one frame, but the entire video. If you hold Control and right arrow, you can go frame by frame once it loads. There we go. And see how well it tracks. This is insane. I remember being, I think, 13 or no, 15 or 16 years old in Final Cut Pro, where you had to manually put in each little point and manually move it around the person. It was so time consuming. My younger self would be blown away that I can just click forward and it does it for me. This is insane.
In
As you
recent
can see,
years, there's lots of things where I was like, man, as an intern or even as just like somebody who's younger and messing around with these things, I would have had literally quadruple the amount of time that I used to have.
Yep. As you can see here, it kind of selected a little bit inside of Zach King. Usually that's not that big of an issue, but just to show you what else we can do, I'm going to make my little brush bigger. We're going to deselect and press, oh, my mistake. You're going to hold it on green because you want it to be selected, and now it disappears. And now if you keep going forward, that little dot has disappeared, and now we fully cut out Zach King. For the most part, this is pretty good. Even if there's stuff later on, it won't be that big of a deal because we'll be cutting away by then. Now, to secure everything you have selected, you're going to press this freeze button. What it's essentially doing now is cutting them out in real time. And we're just going to wait for it to complete. And then after this, we're going to save our project and head back to Premiere to replace the background.
Also, Grant, did you build your own computer?
Yes. Wow, you really know how to get me going. This computer is my baby that I've had since COVID. I built it myself when I first was really getting into video editing before I even worked for Zach King. And it's pretty powerful. Unfortunately, technology gets better exponentially. And so even though it's only been, I think, 4 or 5 years now, it's outdated. So I'll have to eventually get a new one. But it's a pretty powerful PC that's done me well over the course of 4 years. So now that we've finished up our thing, we're going to head back to our composition. And so as you see, the background is completely replaced.
Wow.
This is insane. This is beautiful. We're going to head back to Premiere, and we're just going to update in real time. Now we can add any background we want. I think specifically for this, I have a slime video that I'm going to put in. We're going to find him. There we go. Just for time's sake. Actually, you know what? Why not? We already have the asset. We're going to put in that Mario background again. Let me go find it because we love speedrunning, apparently. To make it fit the frame, you can right-click and press... okay, there's 2 options. One of them scales it, one of them doesn't. Okay, there we go. The one you want to use is fit to frame. The reason why that's so important is because it'll change the values of it, which is very helpful later on. If you choose the other option, it'll keep it 100, and then the graphics of it will look a little funky, but let's put it like right about
look ahead
there. Again, we're just going to blur the background just so it kind of eases a little better. Let's do blur.
Yeah, we're also gonna add a vignette, maybe.
Oh, you know too much already. You're coming for my job.
Coming for your job. That's what I'm doing.
Let's actually, yeah, sure. Let's add in a vignette. Let's do -3 instead of -5, so it's not as intense. There we go. It kind of looks like a realistic green screen. Not gonna lie, because of the corners being so dark. That's pretty cool. So now we have Zach King cut out. We can check what the slime is gonna take over in the background. As you see, it's kind of a lot to compute because this video file is ProRes 444 with alpha, which means anything that's transparent will, like, the reason why it's already masked out essentially is because it's an alpha channel. I'm getting a little too much into the details for that part, but essentially it's a cool background that we can have. Then on top of all of this, what we can do is add some keyframes. So now that we have our really cool cutout of Zach King, actually, might as well just show you one last thing. Let's go back into After Effects. We can actually fine tune this edge. Right now it's pretty bare bones and rough. What we can do is add a little bit feather. Here, I'll zoom in so you can see what I'm talking about. See how like rough it is, and then as the video plays, it really is pixelated. Let's smoothen that out with feather. See how quickly that smoothed it out? Let me undo. See how blocky? Now it's smooth. Let's head to edge shift or shift edge. Let's bring it in a little bit. There we go. Just so there's any little like extra pieces on the side, we're just gonna kind of bring in. You know, you remember how I did the masking where it kind of went out? Now we're gonna bring it back in, essentially.
Just contracting in.
Yes, thank you. So now we're gonna press save again, because if you don't save the project, then it won't update in Premiere. So now that it's saved in real time, I'm sure you didn't see it because over Zoom, but it updated, so now it's a lot smoother. So now that we have everything, let's add a little bit, little dynamics to it. Let's like kind of zoom into them. So you can right click everything and press nest, wherever that may be. I have a keyboard shortcut. There it is. We can just call it nested sequence 2 to save time. And so now whatever we do for this clip, it'll adjust everything. The cutout of Zach, the background, and the other Mario background. As you see, it's red, so it's going to be a little difficult to play in real time. Currently, I'm just waiting for Premiere to update the frame.
Oh, we're all good though. We got about 2 or 3 minutes left.
Okay.
So I guess we could also just do a real quick recap. We talked about some keyframing. We talked about adding interest with zooming in, adding vignettes. But I also want to make sure that we give you plenty of time to let people know, where can we find you online? Where can we find what comes next from you? Obviously, we have Zach King video, but where's the best place to find you?
Yeah. So for me personally, I solely create just for Zach King. I don't have any content myself or anything like that. I'm very happy that I get to be a part of the social media presence and just be in the background and help my boss Zach King and my other coworkers to succeed. But unfortunately, I myself is not really on anything. I will say, since you brought it up, my sights are set on teaching at Chapman University, a editing for social media course. So that's my next steps. And
that's awesome.
If you want to audit the class for a couple $1,000s or whatever it costs now, you're more than welcome to join. But yeah, Chapman University Dodge College is the film program that they have. But yeah, that's where you can find me. I think with our last moments that we have, I'll just bring up the Alaska timeline to show you guys how complex it is. This is the video that we just posted 2 days ago, 48 hours ago, that I keep mentioning. This is the timeline. There's a few little red spots, but no spoilers, of course, because you have to go watch it for yourself. But this is what a timeline would look like for a complex video like this. Let me just zoom in a little bit.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. So
bonkers.
we
Look at
have
all
it being
those audio
complex on the
files.
bottom, yep, and complex on the top. It's some pretty cool graphics. I'll kind of just
down all
show you
around.
what some of those graphics look like, introducing people. And we actually cut out Sarah, one of the producers. So that's some little rotoscoping and stuff. I think we did that in Photoshop to make it even quicker than having to go back and forth. But yeah, this is what a big time Zach King video will look like, or the timeline at least. And all of these colors help me and Corey, the other editor, figure out, hey, what story beat is this? Pink, bright pink. All right, that's going to be Sarah's section, or yes, Sarah's section in the Alaska and whatnot. And then the screen part is a little bit of a meal. But yeah, a lot of hard work went into this. And I'm very lucky that I get to be a part of the team that worked on this.
Great. Well, thank you so much for sharing. Thank you also for showing the backstage view of
Yeah.
the edit. We'll have to make sure we go check it out. Thank you to Voodoo Val for putting that link to the YouTube video in the chat. Appreciate you. And also Apurva is saying earthquake chart, which is funny. Holy smokes. But make sure you guys stick around. We got plenty more on Adobe Live for you today. Up next, we have some Adobe Express with Brittany Megan. So you want to stick around for that one. But thank you again for Grant Reed. It was a wonderful time talking to you and learning all these new things that you can add to your video editing. And we hope to see you again real soon.
Thank you so much. And thank you to my mom, Tracy, as well. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.